Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. Well, Saga 960 got a new morning man this morning, started at 7 o'clock from 7 till 9, and I wanted to introduce you to him all. His name is Randy Taylor. He's been an icon on GTA radio, airwaves, and television for over 25 years. His message is simple. Give people a voice, they'll get involved, and find the solutions to help make this country better. Randy Taylor, welcome to the evening drive home show.
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you very much, and it's terrific to have an opportunity to do this. I always think, and you'll probably echo the choir on this, that it's humbling, right, to be able to have an opportunity to to share ideas with people, to hopefully have them see some things in themselves and in the community and in the country that maybe they didn't do, and hopefully inspire people to get involved and take action and do things. So it's humbling, and I'm very proud to be here.
Well, we're happy and proud to have you join our team. It's interesting. You've been doing this for 25 years. I've only been doing it for 3. But in that time period, being on air every night of the week for 3 years, you meet an incredible amount of people, breadth of people, different people, different occupations, different political stripes, different beliefs. It is really quite amazing. Over 25 years, you must have had just an unbelievable breadth of interactions with people.
Yeah, and I think that one of the adjectives to add into your list there, and it was wonderful, is good people.
Yep.
I don't think that the country realizes, because we see people who are sitting at the top, the people who are in the media, the people who are in politics, the people who are, at the very top of the echelon in the business world, and they're the movers and shakers and everything else. And when you really drill down and you find out how intelligent the citizens are, and listeners are, and viewers are, and, we all sit around. It was interesting last week. I had a couple of neighbors come over, and we did something that, we probably don't do often enough anymore. And we sat on the front porch, the 4 of us, the 2 couples, and we started talking about all the things that are going on in the country, and inflation and housing and pricing, and just, a myriad of everything. And we were talking about going on, starting this radio show today, and I said, my biggest goal, I think, in this is trying to become the glue to bring all of those front porches together, and to give those people their due, and allow them. The focus of my show is going to be the listeners. I may have some guests on from time to time, but I want the show to be everyone who's listening. Everyone has an opinion. We elect governments one vote at a time, and we can change this country one vote at a time. And that's who I want to hear from, because I think that that's where the passion comes from. That's where the great ideas come from. And that's where our future is going to come from. So that's kind of my hope.
What a great attitude. Look forward to tuning in to your show as I drive to work. What a great opportunity.
And phone in.
And
Brian,
you're going to be
right. Like, everyone, and the people that are listening right now, Monday to Friday, 7 till 9 o'clock in the morning, the phone lines will be open. The phone lines are yours. And, we may be doing, a show on wildfires or something that's going on, healthcare. They're all going to be major topics that we're going to be covering. But I want you to feel free to call in. If we're talking about one specific topic and you have something you want to talk about, pick up the phone and call, right? If you think there's something going on in healthcare, or something going on in municipal politics, whatever is going on, go ahead. The show is yours. Pick up the phone and call. Is this going
to be a Mississauga topic, a Toronto topic, an Ontario topic, Canadian topic, world topic?
Yeah, you know what? The radio station is here in Mississauga, and it's, it's serving the people of Mississauga, but it's across the country.
Right.
Right. Because we stream live now on, saga960.ca. And so it is across the country, and all of the topics we're going to be covering, whether it's, honesty in politics, if it's the healthcare system, if it's finance, if it's inflation, it affects everyone in Mississauga, and everyone in Brantford, and everyone in Kamloops, right? These are issues, housing, whatever it is, or it's affecting all of Canada. And I don't know about you, but I'm really getting the sense from talking to people in the public more and more that they feel like so much is slipping out of their hands, and it's slipping away, and control is gone. The woke culture that we're living in. My God, you better not have an opinion because I'm going to label you with something and shame you. That has to stop.
Well, and I think one of the biggest issues that I've heard over and over and over again is people they don't think they're being listened to anymore, and they want to be listened to, and even if they've got little ideas that are out there, they still think that they deserve to be listened to, and they
should be listened to,
no question.
When do people get listened to? When the writ is dropped for an election. And then all of a sudden, the baubles all come out. I got money for this and money for this, and we're going to do this, and I care about this. And the moment they're elected, right, that goes away for the next 4 years.
Well, regrettably, I would argue they don't even listen to people during the writ time period, because all they want to do is find out who you vote for, and then they'll mark you down on a sheet of paper, and then they'll come back on election day and make sure you get out and vote. But
if you told a candidate,
the rest of them from,
if you told a candidate, look, this specific area really matters to me, they'll pay lip service to it all day long, right? And then come election time, it's going to go away. I did something years ago that was fascinating. I was on a radio station down in Niagara. It was when I first started in talk radio, and it was a provincial election. And so I had an idea, because everybody was saying, what's the game of politics? You're an idiot. No, you're an idiot. Well, you're a worse idiot. You have terrible ideas. You have no ideas. That's really helping the country, right? So I had this idea, and I thought, let's try and change that. So we dedicated 2 hours of airtime in the afternoon at that time down in Niagara. We had in the candidates from the 4 main parties. I had solicited from my listeners their top questions that they wanted to ask the candidates, and then they came in. There were 10 questions. We had 2 hours. Each candidate had 2 minutes to answer the question. The only caveat was you can't say a word about the other guy. You're here to tell me what you're going to do. And if you do it twice, you're off the show. And the NDP guy, he burned himself once, and I went, okay, that's it. Once more, you're off the show. And so they sat in the studio for 2 hours actually talking about policy, actually talking about constructive solutions that they could potentially make this country better, whether they were true or not.
Randy,
I got emails for months after saying that. Randy,
I'm sorry, we don't want you. We don't want you as a morning host. We want you as Speaker of Parliament, because that's what we should do, is have you as the Speaker of the Parliament, and then maybe we'd actually have good discussion, good question period, rather than just the yelling and hollering that we get.
Isn't it embarrassing to watch? I mean, if your kids sat down and watched, the House of Commons or Queen's Park or Council, it's, what? Shame on you. And the fact that, one of the things that really bothers me, and I'm going to bring it up, and I ran federally in 2000 down in Niagara, and I was interviewed, and I was in a debate one night on CTV News with one of the other candidates, and I said, listen, the way that things are so broken in Ottawa right now, I promise you, if I am elected, I am going to be the first member of Parliament to stand up on the floor of the House of Commons and say, ladies and gentlemen, I believe the member from the opposition has a pretty good idea. What do you say we support it?
Never happened.
You'd be tarred and feathered. I would have. I absolutely would have. Right? You want to kick me out of caucus or do whatever. You're sent there by the public hoping, just praying that you're going to do something to make the country better. Isn't that it?
Yeah, you are sent there by the public hoping that, but the reality is it's the leader's office, the PMO, or the leader of the official opposition's office, and probably not even that individual, but some junkie, some lackey within that office, not junkie, apologize, that makes the decision as to, whether you get your candidacy nomination signed again the next time, whether you get a committee post, and for sure, whether you get into cabinet. And so therefore, the decisions on your progress within the party and within the Parliament are made by the leader's office, not by the people that elected you and sent you there.
But I truly believe, maybe I'm living in this fantasy world, that I think that we can change it. I think that if the public, and all the public has to do is to really focus on and really rise up and say, you know what? You know who sent you there? That was me. Okay. I'm a voter. I'm a Canadian. My ancestors and my aunts and uncles and grandparents fought and died for the right to vote and have a democracy. So here's how this is going to work. We're going to start telling you the things that matter to us as voters, and you can do anything you want. But if you don't fall in line with what the public is hoping is going to happen, right, in the House of Commons, including getting along once in a while, working together once in a while, doing something focused on improving the nation, not focused on helping your friends and getting reelected. That has to stop. And I am not pie in the sky. I really think it can stop if we demand it, because we put them there and we can take them out. I think so.
I think we regrettably need to change some of the institution of government before we ever get there. I think that just good thoughts and pressure from smart people like you and the electorate won't do it. And I think that the best proof is that supposedly our current Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, 1,500 times during the initial election that he ran for Prime Minister, said that it would be the last election under first past the post. And I think he really believed that at the time. He really believed that the first past the post system that we've got was a mistake and is a problem and should be changed. Then they did a committee that traveled across the country. And once you're in power, why would you change the way that got you elected? And I think that this institutional, inertia and desire to stay in power meant that Trudeau didn't follow through that. And there's been numerous examples in the past. Dalton McGuinty had a similar, conclusion, referendum, and then campaigned against the referendum. Mike Harris had a similar conclusion and recommendation and then went against it. So too often, these politicians don't do anything that's against their self-interest, even if it is actually better for democracy and better for the electorate. Anyway, Randy, we got to take a break.
Go ahead. You got to take a break.
We got to take a break. We're going to come back in 2 minutes with Randy Taylor, the new Drive to Work man, morning man on Saga 960. Started today. He's on every Monday through Friday at 7 o'clock, 7 till 9 every morning on 960 AM. You can stream him online anywhere from across Canada, just as you can stream me at Saga, www.saga960am.ca. Stay with us. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We've got a new morning man at Saga 960, and he's joined us this evening. Randy Taylor is his name. He started this morning at 7 a.m. He's on every morning on Saga 960 between 7 and 9 a.m. And Randy, you've got a really interesting background, and I'd like you to talk about it a little bit if you could. I understand that you grew up in poverty, violence, parent alcoholism. You were homeless and alone at the age of 14. You had a working life that was described as Forrest Gump. You were a teen and you were working in manual labor. You moved into sales. You owned 2 companies. You began your broadcasting career at age 28 and then made it all the way to the top of the Canadian broadcasting business. You've driven a race car, really?
Yeah.
Written 3 books, ran for federal politics. You're a father of 5, and you're also an expert, I understand, in behavioral neuroscience. And you founded something called Tailor-Made Leadership 20 years ago, coaching, training, and speaking to many of the top corporations in Canada about leadership. What a background.
It's so funny. I'm listening to you say this, and I remember when I met my wife and her parents, just the finest people I've ever met. We lost her dad about a year and a half ago, and the brightest, funniest, most engaging Blue Jay fan, dentist, dad, just funny guy, wonderful guy. But when my wife and I first started dating, we had met them 2 or 3 times, and things come up that well, what have you done and where do you work and what do you do and things like that. And he pulled her aside one day and he said, "Honey, is he telling the truth?" And it's like, I guess when you sit and you listen to it, it's I heard a great story a while ago, and I actually stole it and use it and credit the guy. I speak at a lot of conferences and meetings and things like that, and typically they want you to send your bio ahead of time, and then the person gets up on stage and they introduce you, and so they go through this whole bio and everything is in there and all the companies I work for and blah 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 blah. So I finally get up on stage and I said, "Listen, I would really like to apologize for having put you through all of that. It was so long and tedious, but my mom wrote it." So that's
How'd you read it? Well, tell me about growing up, because poverty, violence, alcoholism, some big issues. How did that impact you? How did that change you?
Kind of feels like another life or somebody else's story, I guess. It's it happens to so many people. I think that there can be bumps in the road that move along. At the time, when I was very little, life was wonderful. We owned a big farm and raised turkeys and owned a processing plant and sold turkey to all the Dominion stores, all the chain stores, and everything else. And there was, no real insurance back in those days. And my dad got a shipment of diseased turkeys, and it wiped us out.
Oh, really?
Went through all the barns and killed them all. And you don't have, lines of credit and money and all the rest of it. So it wiped them out. So we lost everything. And I think it really damaged him. He was never home. He was only at work, and we moved into a little 2-bedroom walk up, and, and that's kind of how life went on. And my mom had just a litany of health issues, and doctors got her addicted to prescription medication and then tried to take it away. And then she went to alcohol, and, and then everything just kind of unravels, and you find yourself, amidst all of this, horrible suicide threats and violence and everything else. And during one fight one day, we lived in the country, and I said, I can't do it. And I walked out the door, and I walked out to the road, and I stuck out my thumb, and I was gone. And that was it. Living on the streets was not as scary as that. So
a lot of people in that kind of a situation would have given up. You didn't, and you went into manual labor and then sales and then started businesses.
Yeah.
What was the catalyst?
There was a magic man. The day I left high school at age 16, because I had to eat, Beamsville District Secondary School, you can see on the wall over there is an award that I was given a number of years ago. They started a wall of fame, and I was one of the first inductees, and I finished grade 10. So I didn't even finish high school, but they were nice enough. So anyway, the guidance counselor, Mr. Gretzinger, they made me sit with him on the day that I left school, and he tried for an hour to talk me out of going, and he couldn't. And I was on my way out the door, and he stopped me, and he said, Randy, I want you to know something. I said, what's that? He said, I want you to know that where you are now has nothing to do with where you can go. And, it wasn't one of those magical moments that the angels were singing and the skies parted, but for some reason I needed somebody to tell me you got a shot. And those words kept coming back. And over the years and all of the work that I do now, I've shared that with hundreds of thousands of people. Where you are now has nothing to do with where you can go. And I truly believe that if I didn't have that day, I might have just accepted where I was and, became whatever society said some kid living on the streets is probably going to become.
Yeah.
Right. So Mr. Gretzinger, he's gone now, but
that's a great inspirational story. And it's a great line. And it's a line that I'm glad you're telling people about. And then I understand you got an interest in politics at a young age, listening to President John Kennedy. Yeah.
He just, back in the day, and I know Kennedy had his flaws, and I know that, he wasn't the best husband and a lot of things, but what he was able to do then, you're one person, right? Prime Minister, President, the Premier, whoever you are, you're one person. So, in a country of 300 million people, what do you really have the capacity to do? You have the capacity to inspire, right? If you can take the electorate and have them work 1% harder, right? Because of patriotism, because they believe in the country, because they want to build something wonderful. And Kennedy, at his inauguration, I was a little kid, and I still to this day can hear the words, think not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And it just, for me, that was a leader, right? And I've kind of used his approach in the Bay of Pigs and, everything else that he did. And yes, he had huge personal flaws. He wasn't a saint by any means, but he was a politician who was able to tell people we can do better, right? Let's do this together. So
I really wonder if anyone that can end up being that successful in politics or, any area in life, frankly, if that much success takes so much time, so much energy, can be a saint. So sometimes I think we have false evaluations, incorrect evaluations for some of our leaders, and they're human, and we accept
he did
a lot of
he did the best
challenges
of what we could expect him to do.
And he did. And he did.
Martin Luther King, what did he do? Right? Never, never counseled violence, never did anything like that. Stood up there at the Lincoln Memorial and said, what? I have a dream that one day all of God's children will join hands and live in harmony. I have a dream.
But then
and
again,
those words,
he was a failed, he had some weaknesses too, big weaknesses.
1,000%. But here's someone who had the ability to cause millions of people to rise up. His words that day had so much power that they reverberated around the square, around the city and the nation and the world, that just 40 years later, think of this, because you remember, I don't know if you were around for Kennedy, but we can remember the day when it was an absolute impossibility to say a black man will take up residence in a White House that was built by slaves.
Yeah.
How powerful were his words, right? So it's not, as a leader, you're not going to pick up the shovel, but you have to inspire everybody else that we can make it better.
So you got this interest in politics, and you've obviously talked to people for 25 years about politics.
Yeah.
Where do you think we are today? Not in a good place, I presume.
No, it's, what, and it truly is slipping away. And this is not, one of the things that I want listeners to know about this show is, back when I was on CFRB in Toronto, any stations that I've been on, every once in a while somebody would call up and go, "Oh, you sound so angry. You think that's so funny. You're trying to, gen up ratings." No, I'm not. Like, if I laugh, I really think it's funny. If I'm angry, I'm really angry. And so, and I hope from the listeners too, when they call, just call and be honest. What's going on? So, is our political system absolutely a mess? Yes, it is. We have allowed the bar to fall so low that our former premier was a drug addict and we let him stay in office. His brother is now, embroiled in a massive fraud, giving away the green belt that our kids were supposed to chase frogs on one day. And south of the border, right? Here's a television jerk who has 91 criminal charges against him.
91.
And when they're done, what are we going to call him? Mr. President, right? One of the Proud Boys gets 22 years for a break and enter. He broke a window, right, at the Capitol building and went in. He got 22 years. And Trump, who was the mastermind of this, is going to probably beat all of these charges and go on and be president. So is our system broken? Damn right it is. Trudeau destroys the rights of average Canadians. A couple of ladies out in the West in Canada are going to trial now because they convinced a bunch of truckers that this is something we should stand up for, and go beep your horns. And they're probably going to go to jail. What about Trudeau? All the money from the WE scandal that went to his family. Come on. If we don't level the playing field more and more and more, and not just politically, corporately too, right? Corporations have destroyed small business in this country. Walmart, 1.6 million employees, have wiped out so many independent retailers. 90% of their workforce is below the poverty line. So those are the big issues that I want to talk about, to have people go, geez, I didn't think of it that way. Our healthcare system, between healthcare and pharma, we're spending over $500 billion a year. And people are getting sicker and sicker and sicker. You know what we spend on health in this country? Bupkis, nothing. And we're running into this brick wall going, gee, I wonder what's gone wrong. Childhood illness today is at 54%. 54% of our kids have a health condition. Autism, asthma, all kinds of allergies, on and on and on. Do you know what the childhood illness rate was in the 50s? 4%.
Where'd that
Do you
come
ever hear
from?
this on the news?
Is this
No.
is this that our healthcare system is so much worse today, or is it that is it environmental things that have caused all these?
It's
what's the
primarily
cause of it?
environmental. So there's two things that have destroyed the health of this nation. Not only Canada, the U.S., around the world. Well, except Europe, they don't allow Monsanto and Roundup and glyphosate to be put on their crops and poison everyone. Between big pharma and big ag, you want to find out what's happened to the health of this country, there's the two culprits. That, and I'm sorry to say, but the medical community, right? They will go out of their way and destroy anyone who wants to offer a natural solution to some kind of a health condition. They wanted to destroy the chiropractic, right, form of treatment, because there was one lady who maybe 2 days after a treatment had a stroke, and she was a drinker and a smoker, and the medical community absolutely decimated the chiropractors in the media. Do you know what the number? Wait, I'll back this up. Do you know what the term iatrogenic disease means?
No.
Isn't that wild? You know what? Because it's the number 3 leading cause of death. I want everyone to go to the computers tonight and look this up. I'm not making this up. The number 3 leading cause of death in North America is iatrogenic disease, death by doctor. Doctors in pharma are killing. They're the number 3 leading cause of death. And it's not just people overdosing, it's medical mistakes and pills that, you know, are killing people and causing, you know, when you see the ads on the television that says, well, it might cause, and then they go through 75 different conditions. Do you know why they do that? Because all those things happened to people when they took their pills.
During the clinical trials, yes.
Not during the clinical trials, ongoing. And over the last 10 years, do you know how many drugs the FDA finally decided were hurting people significantly and have taken them off the market? 1,400. Some of them on the market for decades. And every year they pull about another 140 drugs that they absolutely approved. You know, and so, you know, companies like Pfizer and Moderna and all these companies saying, oh, no, this is all safe. This is all wonderful. What about the drugs last year, right, that you put out there that killed people? How about those drugs? So I'm not saying the medical community is all wrong. I'm not saying that pharma is all wrong. But the way that they are put on this pedestal, I read a report 2 days ago. Do you know what the percentage of television ads are now for pharma?
No, what?
Shocking. 75%. 75% of television revenue is coming from big pharma.
Well, I think your show in the morning is going to be kind of interesting to listen to. I think that there's going to be some provocative discussions. So I'll give you a counterpoint on a couple of them just for the fun of it.
Yep.
I think that pharmaceutical products have probably saved more people in the last generation than almost anything that's been created. Vaccines being one of them, and then pharmaceutical products. Pharmaceutical products as a percentage of healthcare spending a generation ago was somewhere around 10-15%. Today, it's about 45%. And it's a cheaper, more efficient, more effective way of keeping people alive and bringing them health. I think one of the big mistakes that we have in our system is we have really sick care, not health care. And so I do think that there's a real issue.
I have to absolutely 1,000% disagree with you. Pharma is the cause of more health conditions than virtually anything on the planet. We can sit down and have a 2-hour show.
I look forward to it.
About this and statistically to go through exactly what is happening to people. And, you know, the COVID vaccine, to be able to get to a point where we were shoving that down people's throats and forcing people to roll up their sleeves and put this in their bodies when the testing had not been done. All you have to do, you know, with the COVID vaccine is follow the lies. This has been completely tested. It's totally safe. We know that it's going to give you almost complete protection. Oh, until we changed our minds and said, well, no, it may wear off after 6 months or so. And then we said, oh, no, well, you know, occasionally one person, an outlier, might get COVID after getting both vaccines. And then they came out and said, yeah, pretty much virtually every person who had the vaccines, me included, got COVID. So, you know, we have friends who have teenage sons with lifelong coronary conditions now caused by the vaccine. It's proven by their doctors in the hospital. One of them spent 3 months in the hospital. An 18-year-old kid, fit as a fiddle, and now has lifelong heart problems.
Well,
When
like
you
I
look
say,
at
this is going to end up
statin
being
drugs,
great radio and great
Yeah.
discussions. I obviously have a very different point of view. I think the COVID vaccine is one of the best examples of scientific community getting together, funded to an unbelievable amount by government, and rushed out a vaccine in a record time that saved probably millions of lives. I think that vaccines, like any kind of vaccine for any kind of disease, don't last forever. Just like the flu vaccine, you have to update it every year. You have to take a booster, and I think the proof is in all the studies that have shown that people that didn't take the vaccines when they got COVID ended up going to the hospital. People that
no, that's
had the
wrong. No,
vaccines
that's
and
absolutely
got
wrong.
COVID
In the early
could deal with
going,
it okay.
in the early going, okay, there have been pandemics that have come out like the Spanish flu that was incredibly deadly when it first came out. You can follow the statistics of what went on, and as the virus began to morph and it begins to weaken. Seasonal flu right now, it shouldn't be called seasonal flu. It should be called the Spanish flu, because that's what it is. So when they come out every couple of weeks and say, "Oh, we found this new subvariant of this virus," that's exactly what the seasonal flu is. It's another subvariant of the virus.
And the flu kills
Yeah.
more people than almost anything else every year, up until the last couple of years. And why did the flu and the common cold not cause as many deaths in the last year as it has in past years? It's because people started washing their hands. They started sneezing into their shirts. A lot of the things that we would tell people to do to not transmit viruses and diseases and things like this that people just didn't care about, we actually started doing because we got educated during.
But do you know what happened? Do you know what happened, O'Brien? As soon as they opened the doors back up again, the lockdown of COVID proved that we actually can control the environment and make it better.
Yes.
So that was good. But as soon as the doors opened back up, I have a younger family again, and so my kids are in school. My kids were in camp. The amount of illness when COVID was over, because we put our kids in plastic bags and we sanitized them for 2 years and didn't let them touch anything, the level of illness, my big 6'5" strapping son, I had to drive up to Northland Camp and pick him up because he was so sick he couldn't function.
Shutting down schools was probably the biggest mistake after shutting down parks, which was also a stupid mistake.
And sanitizing everything. Our kids are supposed to touch dirt. They're supposed to get viruses. They're supposed to get sick.
No question. Getting viruses. And that's one of the reasons why, if you take a look at the statistics, that people that are born naturally versus people that are born through cesarean section are healthier longer term. One of the reasons why is they get a whole bunch of viruses from their mother through the birth canal, and that's been proven over and over again. People that are breastfed are far
stronger immune system.
I
mean, one of the things that the medical community completely discounts is trying to do something to actually support our bodies. People say alternative medicine. All alternative medicine are very, very clean and organic fruits and vegetables and minerals and supplements that help your body do its job. How Pfizer thinks that they can do a better job than my body about just about everything, as I sit here, 75 trillion cells, and you too, every cell going through 100,000 chemical reactions per second.
That's where pharmaceutical products come from. What's aspirin?
Yeah.
Aspirin is tree bark, right? And so, it's pharmaceutical products are people that have done trial and error with a whole bunch of things that are in the world. And they,
how many people are made sick every year on statins? It's now a $1 trillion industry. Cholesterol lowering drugs. Did you know that statins were created and then research was done by the pharmaceutical companies to create cholesterol levels to be able to justify the use of it?
No. So statins
were $1 trillion
were created because dumb guys like me eat inappropriate food, don't walk often enough, don't get good sleep, don't have healthy lifestyles. It's our unhealthy lifestyle. It's created a cholesterol epidemic, and the pharmaceutical business has made it easy for us to not smarten up by.
No, they haven't. The side effects of taking statin drugs. here's whenever it comes to healthcare, and there's so many other things that I want to talk about on the show, but here's my only caveat. Okay. We had a daughter that was incredibly sick for a number of years and almost died, and a surgeon saved her life. But going through the journey, she ended up being made incredibly sick by elements of pharma. Okay. And my biggest message, I think, to everyone is, listen, don't believe Brian. Don't believe Randy. Go and do your own research. Go and research and find out. And if you really still think, right, that is, that's a good idea to go ahead with that, that's what freedom is all about. But don't go blindly down the street saying, my doctor told me to put this in my arm, and so therefore I am doing it. My mother-in-law has AFib because she got the vaccine. Okay. So, if anyone wants to get the vaccine, fill your boots. It is not for me or anyone to tell you. But to put people into a situation where, oh, you're not going to live properly if you don't take statin drugs. Oh, well, if you don't get, this kind of chemotherapy, then you don't have a chance. It's like every idea that they have is the only idea. And that has to change. My daughter, for constipation.
And with respect, I think it has changed. I think that
it hasn't. It's gotten so much worse. No, Brian, let me just say this. My daughter was put on a medication that is an over-the-counter medication here in Canada. And please, folks, go and look this up. It is so dangerous for you or anybody in your family to take it. Please go and look it up. It's called Restoralax. In the US, the brand is called Miralax. It's supposed to be this mild laxative. And she was very constipated. So I tried everywhere to find, is there anything wrong with this? No, some cramping and bloating. That's about it. I waited 6 months to put her on it. We finally did. She started getting incredibly sick. It changed her personality. It made her, like, you cannot imagine what happened to her. And we were losing her. And through a fluke, my wife was talking to her sister, and her sister said, yeah, I tried it, and I don't know, it really seemed to affect my mood. I don't know why, right? Because it's supposed to be something that is innocuous. It's over the counter. So I went and I typed in, and I had looked online. Was there anything wrong with this? Pages and pages and pages online, nothing online. I typed in mood problems and Restoralax. Bang. This opens up, and there's a website. And parents, if you're thinking about using this, and again, I'm telling you, don't listen to me. Go do your own research. The Facebook group called Parents Against Miralax out of the US had 38,000 members when I joined, and I read everything on the site, and everything that they said had happened to their kids happened to my daughter. And kids on that website who killed themselves because of psychological problems. It's polyethylene glycol is the #1 ingredient in that crap. It's a derivative of petroleum. It's a poison. And that website now has 70,000 families begging the FDA to do something about this product. And it sits in big displays on the shelves of every drugstore in this country. So
I don't know any of the facts about that specific product.
I know, but look it up. That's what my point is, right? Let's stop being lemmings and go and look things up.
I do think that people are doing research a lot more, and I think that one of the big positive, benefits of Google, of the internet, is that people are doing some of their own research and not just taking whatever it is the doctor says. So, I think that is a positive benefit of what's happened in our society today. I do think still that the FDA, Health Canada, have incredibly rigorous approval processes.
Oh my God!
I mean it. And
you know what? You've been drinking the Kool-Aid for so long. I'm never going to convince you, I don't think, but you are the poster child for everything that I know to be untrue. And I have, because of illness in the family and things like that, I am not some, conspiracy theorist, which is a word we should all hate. If somebody has a different opinion, if someone has done different research, if someone comes up with a different fact, they're not a conspiracy theorist. It's things like that are used to knock people down and stop them from having an opinion. But, whether it's about healthcare, whether it's about the woke culture, whether it's about government, whatever it is, right? We have been beaten into submission. I was invited a number of months ago to go and see Jordan Peterson in Toronto. It's like, nice, kind of an out there, wildly smart professor type guy. So we go and we sit in this theater with 3,300 people in it. And Peterson goes off on some 45-minute rant on some professorial, lecture nonsense that people were falling asleep in the last 15 minutes. He was himself. And we're driving home, and when we were there, it was a friend of mine who bought the tickets, and I'm a client of his, and so he bought me the tickets. So we're sitting in the theater, and I said, just curious, how much are the tickets? $248. $248. I said, you know what, guys? We just sat with 3,300 people to pay $248 to listen to somebody else have an opinion we're not allowed to have anymore ourselves. There's something to that. That is a frightening element of what is going on and how silenced people have become.
Yeah, even on that, I disagree with you. I think that his book has been a bestseller. He's got a huge following on radio and podcasts. So it's not an opinion that you can't have anymore. His opinions actually are shared by a sizable amount of people.
But people aren't talking about it though. Like sitting around dinner tables, there's so many issues going on in the public right now about sexuality, about abortion, about whatever, that people have been zipped, and they are being told to be quiet, and they have been listening. And quietly, people are sitting on front porches and saying, we need to stop being quiet. No one is allowed to hurt another person.
And I think
we can't judge someone by race, by personal lifestyle, by anything. But to sit back and say, no, you're going to, have your kids in grade 1 fill out a form and let us know if they believe they're binary. It's like, no, those are my kids. I don't
think anyone in grade 1 is filling out that form.
Yes, they are. I have a copy of the form. I can send it to you from a friend's school. Their daughter was in
grade
there.
1. I don't
grade 1.
I want you to send me that form. I don't agree.
I will send you the form.
We're going to take a break for some messages and be back in just 2 minutes with Randy Taylor. Fun, right? Yeah. And I tell you, he's going to be a lot of fun to listen to every morning. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. My guest tonight is Randy Taylor, who's the new morning man at Saga 960. And we've had a good discussion so far. I'm not sure if we agree on anything at all, other than Saga 960 is worth listening to. But you know what? I really enjoy listening to people that have got different views than mine. And I think Randy probably agrees with that. Because how are you ever going to grow as a person?
We have to. You're bang on. You're absolutely right. And it's, as I said off the top, and if people are just joining right now, the absolute premise of the morning show are the listeners, right? The show is about them. The show is about their calls, their comments, their ideas, their opinions. We can debate. The great line that said, I can absolutely hate every word you say, but I will fight to the death for your right to say it. Right.
I agree.
And that's what this country is supposed to be all about. And I think that we're losing too much of that. Too many freedoms in this country, too much. I mean, the trucker strike was, gosh, the Emergency Measures Act, like, really? Did it get out of hand? Yeah, sure. But
I did shows on this, Randy. And so I'll tell you what I said at the time is that I disagreed with mandates. I agreed with people taking the vaccine because I thought the vaccine worked, but I fought like crazy against mandates. I had Roman Baber on my show where we talked about how mandates would be a real travesty and a real problem and would take really good people out of the healthcare system that we were dependent on and out of first line healthcare workers and other people. And I really think that the Prime Minister, probably his biggest mistake in his government was not sitting down and listening to the people that came to Ottawa. I didn't agree that they should have stayed as long as they did, and I didn't agree that they shut down the city the way they did. But part of that was because they weren't listened to, and if they were actually listened to, they might have had a different attitude and a different strategy in the end. And 15%, not 100, not 50, but 15% of the Canadian population, based on polls, supported the trucker convoy. And if 15% of society supports one idea, you deserve to be listened to. You deserve to be heard. You're not the majority.
But a lot more people were completely against. Which is, you have to give props to the people in the convoys. Those were truckers. I mean, these are not big Wall Street and Bay Street, high flying businessmen. These are guys that sit in trucks every day and they grind it out and they go home and play with their kids and try and feed their family. Right. So these people were pretty passionate about it. And if you really looked at, the percentage of people in this country who wanted the vaccine, and again, if you want it, God love you. It's not up to me to tell you not to. But the only way that they did that is through, social annihilation. My wife and I said when it started, because of all my daughter's health issues, you will, over my dead body, stick that in her arm. There's not a chance. She has autoimmune conditions and there are serious concerns. Well, the government put us and put everyone else in a position where your daughter is going to be absolutely isolated from everything if she doesn't get this. And we ended up like hundreds of thousands of other parents and caving in and doing it and holding our nose. And I will say too, and this is not anecdotal because I was there, I took my son and I took my daughter into the community center up here in Maple to get their vaccines. When my son went in, I couldn't go in with him because he was older. I was in the car outside. He called me, he said, Dad, I just as they were sticking the needle in my arm, I turned around and this guy in his 30s behind me starts flopping on the floor, having horrible convulsions. And they put a tent around him. And I don't know what's going on. Jesus, right? Oh my God, that's crazy. Take him out of there. 2 weeks later, I'm in there with my daughter and I'm sitting beside her. She gets the needle. We're sitting in the chairs waiting the 15 minutes and we hear this noise. Woman, 25 years old, on the floor convulsing from the vaccination. So for people to say, no, we're here from the government to help. We know what we're doing. Some of the largest class action lawsuits are against Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson for these so-called perfect drugs that they made before that killed people. So, for parents to say, I'm not buying into this and I don't want to get it, and then you're forced into it, and then people get angry enough. I remember the race riots in the U.S. in the 1960s, right? And the anti-war protests and everything else. Protest is a part of democracy. And to bring in, we have friends around the corner. A friend of theirs had their bank account seized because they donated $100 to the truckers. And if that doesn't scare us, I don't know what will.
So I think some things in the Emergency Measures Act went way too far. There's no question. But I do think that, going back to your initial premise and what your radio show is all about, is listening is the key. And the Prime Minister should have sat down with people that were part of that trucker convoy and listened to them. Didn't have to agree with what they said, but should have given them the time of day and listened to them. And I think that not doing so was akin to Hillary Clinton calling people in Middle America the deplorables. And I think it was a huge mistake. On vaccines, you and I aren't going to agree, but that's okay. But here's, and I think we're on the same page in this. You absolutely support them. You obviously went and got it and probably encourage family and friends to go get it. And that is your democratic right. It is also my democratic right to not stick it in my daughter's arm. Yeah. And so mandates were wrong. Social ostracization was wrong. Closing down schools and parks was wrong.
And the research was wrong. How can you go from you're never going to get COVID to everyone who got vaccinated got COVID? How is that possible?
I don't think they ever said they'd never get it.
I'll pull out the original stories and you can easily do it too. Go online.
A vaccine is, as you know, and as everyone knows, a vaccine, what it does is it kills something once you've got it. And so it's not a plastic sheath around your body that says it's not going to come in. It says that once the virus gets in your body has got an immune
but it is for smallpox.
An immune system response that will kill it. It doesn't kill it in a second. It kills it over time. And
what about all the other vaccines that work and this one didn't?
All the,
this is the big picture. Don't people sit back and say, wait a second, you told us if we got this vaccine, it would, and I could pull it up for you right now online. I'll look it up online. That the vaccine, when it was brought out and all the testing that was done and everything else, and said, oh, this is completely safe. Pfizer, by the way, brought it to market in 2 weeks after the announcement that we're going to go after a vaccine. So when that happened and they said only outliers may possibly contract COVID after they've been vaccinated and beyond a certain period of time. And then that benchmark started moving and moving and moving and moving to the point now where everyone has it. So why aren't people dying from COVID now? Because the virus weakened. It's not because of the damn vaccine.
No, it's
because
both.
the virus
and as
weakened.
you know, as you know, because some people are worried that we're into another huge wave and hospitalizations.
You know what? I want to take those people out behind the barn and actually show them the research and show them this lineup of lies that Fauci and all these other people have fed people.
Hospitalizations are up right now. COVID is up, but you're right. COVID weakens, and people say, why does it weaken? Well, it's the virus going through evolution, and what it is if a virus kills its host, it dies. And so therefore a virus to succeed, and the mutations of the virus that succeed are the ones that weaken the host, the human, but don't kill it. And are therefore around such they can transfer it to others. And
that doesn't happen with polio. That doesn't happen with polio. Doesn't happen with measles.
Every single virus that succeeds, flu, common cold, COVID, etc.
No.
Weaken such that it can go on.
No, listen, Brian.
Polio.
Okay, but based on your theory and the things that you're saying, and it's like you're running the marketing department for Tony Fauci. What you're saying, here's the analogy. Okay, so everyone who got the polio vaccine, if there was a polio outbreak again, every person who was vaccinated is probably going to get it again. That is the exact analogy that you're accepting for COVID, but is a box of horse cookies about the polio vaccine.
When you were a kid, did you go to chicken pox parties?
Yes.
My mom took me to a chicken pox party.
I got chicken pox. Yeah.
Why did you do that? Because they knew that if you got chicken pox when you were a kid, you would effectively create some immunity in your body.
And they just wanted it out of the way.
Chicken pox as a teenager or as an adult was far worse. So you wanted to get it when you were a kid. And so therefore, if there was some kid in the neighborhood
No. See, back up.
Everyone else came over to get it.
Talk to me about why people are not by the millions still getting polio. Because you're accepting that the COVID vaccine, the wall of protection is virtually zero, because all the people who got vaccinated still got COVID. So based on your philosophy, everyone who got the polio vaccine should be susceptible, just like any other vaccine, to getting it, but they're not.
What we did with polio was we got rid of polio effectively because we had enough vaccination throughout the whole population that we got rid of it. And it's the same thing with numerous other.
But it's not. You're missing the point. The point is you're saying that it's totally acceptable to get the COVID vaccine and then to get COVID again, maybe a few times. I'm saying if you got the polio vaccine, it has nothing to do with mass immunity. It has to do with if you're exposed to polio, you won't get it because you're vaccinated. That's not true with COVID. Come on, you can't argue that point.
The flu vaccine, the COVID vaccine doesn't kill the virus the second it sees your body. It kills it over time.
So what does the polio vaccine do?
The polio vaccine does the same thing. It does it far quicker. And the polio.
But why don't people repeatedly get polio after they've been vaccinated? Why is that?
Because we've eradicated polio.
No, we haven't. Oh my God, there are countries all over the world that have not been
vaccinated. Right, and that's one of the reasons why.
Outbreaks.
That's one of the reasons why, if you go to Africa, if you go to India, they're going to give you extra vaccines to ensure that you don't get it while you're there.
But here in Canada, regularly there's a measles outbreak. There's a measles outbreak. Why doesn't everyone
and part of the problem is because the incidence of the use of the measles vaccines has gone down. We are worried that actually measles is going to make a big comeback.
Okay, but you're talking about the people who didn't get the vaccine. I'm talking about the people like the COVID people who got the vaccine and are still getting sick. So the vaccine did bupkis.
No, the vaccine.
You can't argue that. The people, all the people in Canada.
I could argue it forever because it's the truth. I think that the vaccine saved millions of lives. It shortened the incidence of getting COVID dramatically. It kept people out of the hospitals. There's study after study that have showed if you were my age and you got COVID and you did not have the vaccine, you were in hospital and you had big problems. If you had the vaccine, you probably didn't even go to the hospital.
It was also proven very early on by major physicians in New York City that the vast number of people in New York who died was because they were intubated. And the lung tissue, because of the COVID vaccine, made the lung tissue brittle. And because of the force of the air of being...
The intubation was primarily before... in the first waves.
No, it wasn't. It was for the first 9 months. It was. It absolutely was. And so
on this one, Randy, we're not going to come to a conclusion. But I think that what you've proven incredibly well is that people want to be heard. I want to be heard. You want to be heard. And you're going to have a show that's going to listen to people. And that, I think, is fantastic.
Looking forward to it.
I look forward to listening to you, sir.
We should do this all the time. This is so much.
Well, we haven't gone off pharmaceuticals. I was going to go into agriculture, and then I was going to go into politics, and we could go through list after list of your
agriculture and pharmaceuticals. Like literally, go and for anyone who is listening, if you want an incredibly intelligent discussion about what has gone on to our food supply and why 54% of our kids are sick, the gentleman's name is Dr. Zach Bush. He's a 4-time board certified physician, radiation oncologist, one of the brightest minds in the world. And he is now working, all of his work is trying to repair our food system. And the poisons that are being put on our food, glyphosate run by Monsanto, Bayer is now coming out with a new GMO food called Liberty Link that is going to be worse than all the poisons that our kids are eating now. Dr. Zach Bush. And go and look up Zach Bush and glyphosate. You will get an immediate education on what has happened to our food.
And I do think that food is a major issue, and processed food is a big issue. I think that a lot of the diseases, autoimmune diseases that Randy mentioned, and some other things are probably environmentally related.
It's not probable. It's 1,000%. It really is. And you remember how old are you, or Brian, if I don't mind me asking?
64.
Okay, I'm a couple years older than you. So when you were a kid, do you remember kids with autism in your class?
I don't, and that's my point.
Who are anaphylactic?
I do think that a bunch of these autoimmune diseases are because of our food. And I think that that's a huge mistake. And I think that...
but why isn't it front page news?
No, I think it is. The Economist had a front page on processed food, and that we are changing the insides of our bodies effectively by the foods that we eat. And one of the real negatives is that a lot of the biggest consumers of processed foods are the people at the lower end of the income scale, because that's the food that's cheaper and that they can more readily get. And so, if there's one thing that we can agree on, is the more natural food that you can eat, the far better, and the more less mass-produced chicken and beef and other things.
And again, that has to be driven by the public. In Europe, glyphosate is banned, right? They don't produce genetically modified wheat. My wife is wildly sensitive now and can't eat the wheat here in North America. If we go to Europe and she eats Italian wheat or wheat grown in France that is not non-GMO and doesn't have glyphosate on it, nothing.
Randy, when are you on?
7 till 9.
7 to 9 on what station?
Saga 960 AM and stream live at saga960am.ca.
We're way over time. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, sir. It's been fun.